Fala, meus brutões! Seja bem-vindo no Outro Lado, onde a gente vai viajando e explorando as trilhas vastas da sua mente. Com quê? Com duas pernas e uma grande vantagem de correr. Guys, we're coming to you again in English today. We got Cody Reed with us. Cody, what's up, man?
Hey, dude. Man, that the Portuguese sure sounds interesting.
Yeah, one more thing in Portuguese. Gente, se você quer legendas com isso, vai para o YouTube, joga as legendas em português, você pode entender tudo, porque, gente, é importante que a gente vai falar hoje. Então, vai lá na YouTube para entender exatamente o que a gente está fazendo aqui. Cody, all right, enough of that. We're done with that. Man, it's been a while. And I'm excited to have you on the show today on the Ultra Lado. Man, who doesn't know Cody Reed? You've made a name for yourself, kind of at that mid distance, the 50K. Man, you rocked it in 2016 at the USATF. You rocked it in the Way Too Cool 50K. You rocked it in Tarawera. I always wonder if I'm saying that right. Tarawera or Tarawara. I'm not in Tarawera. I'm going Tarawera on that. The 100K. And then what you've done, and we're going to really explore what you've done in your time when you've been in South Africa too, where, you threw down 2019 in the 100K there. And we're going to explore things like the Cowboys. And I'm really fascinated with the idea wherever you go, you make a team. And I want to talk about that a lot. Community seems to follow you. But to start, man, one thing I've never asked you, it's like, why did you start running and what attracted you at the beginning?
So I've been running, since high school, since middle school, really. I got into running competitively, doing like 1 or 2 mile races when I was in middle school, and then throughout high school doing cross country and did lacrosse as well. But then when I went to college, I walked on to the cross country and track teams at Northern Arizona University. And, that's just something that I wanted to continue doing. For a while there, I was really interested in triathlons, but swimming was way too freaking hard for me. So I never really went too far with that. I did a sprint triathlon one time, which was really fun. I was probably the last one out of the water, and then just spent the whole rest of the time passing people on the bike and then the run. But anyway, after college, my friend and I, Tim Frericks, who I ran with at NAU, we were hanging out and thinking how cool it would be to like have big days training in the Grand Canyon, just like running for fun. And then another acquaintance, I think he was an acquaintance of Tim at the time. They had known each other through Arizona high school channels, like cross country and track in high school. Jim Walmsley came to town, and he's like, "Hey, if you guys want to like train in the canyon, why don't you just hop in some ultra races?" And then that's when it kind of all started. It was like 2015 or 2016, and then we hopped in some races and we won. And the sponsors came after that, and we're like, "Hey, this is working. Like we can make some money doing this." And that was the goal for me, at least.
I got to ask, like walking on to the cross country team in college, and then post college, like was there a plan that you abandoned, or was like when did this idea come in? Like I can make something of this, and did you abandon another parallel life that could have happened here?
No, I went to college for mechanical engineering, and that was a terrible idea that I don't recommend. I don't think I should have done that. It was a terrible time for me and caused me a lot of problems. I never ended up graduating, and after college, I just needed to, after a few years of college and realizing that this isn't going to work out, I just needed to start making money. And so I got some random jobs around Flagstaff and just continued running on my own. Like, for a lot of people, like running can be their identity. And I didn't feel like that necessarily, but it was something that I was always going to do. Like, whether I was competing or not, I was just going to be running regardless, just on my own. I feel like it's something I need to do.
I mean, just from the outside observing, and this is something that I think it's always an evolution, that it changes your reasons, the famous your why of why you're doing this. But like kind of observing you, it's like obviously competition is like really, really important to you. You're driven by competition, but
yeah, for sure.
Community is definitely in there. This idea of team, and then the way you talk, it's like sanity. It's just like this, that day to day, having a normal, it's like getting your baseline comes through running. Like in this time, like maybe, what do you think it was in high school that was your main drive? Because sometimes when you're that age, you don't really see all the mental benefits of running, but maybe it's the competition, maybe it's more of the team. Did you have that team element in high school and college?
Yeah, so if you were to ask some of my friends in high school that I ran with, like, to tell a story about me running in high school, it would probably be me showing up at their doors on the weekends in the morning. Like, I had run to their houses to pick them up to go for a run, like, unannounced. There was like this big loop that I could do from where I lived, like out of town. I could run from my house and like to a friend's house, like pick them up, and like go to another friend's house, pick them up, and like kind of loop around, and everyone would return, and then I could like go home or like have my parents pick me up. And I did that quite a few times on the weekends.
Well, like what is that? Because I'll be perfectly honest. I go through long stretches where it's the solitude that I love about running. I love the fact that I live in Brazil, where it's like if the main sport is soccer, and if you want to do that, it's like I have so many friends where they have a pickup game every weekend, but there's a lot of work behind that. You got to get 12 people together.
Yeah.
You got to rent the soccer field and everything. It's a lot of freaking work. And so like for me, it's like I love the solitude. I love the fact, okay, I don't need anyone else. Just grab some shorts, hit the trail.
Until relatively recently, like when I started trail running, getting out for extended periods of time, like over days or weeks by myself, running was difficult, and I felt like I needed, or I wanted that team or just somebody else to run with. It just made things so much easier. It's like a way to hold you accountable, way to keep the pace honest as well. And then that like really changed when I started trail running, and getting out on my own and having that solitude was like it was a much easier to just get out on my own. Obviously, like, still running in a group or with people is great, and I enjoy the times that I can get out with people. It doesn't happen as often anymore, but when it does, it's a great thing. It's just a lot easier now to get out on my own, for weeks at a time or months at a time, just by myself. But also, like, that brings me to my friends when I got into trail running, like Tim and Jim and the Coconino Cowboys. Something like having that group of people to train with was really special, and it definitely increased our fitness a lot more, and our speed and our competitiveness, or whatever you want to call it. It increased that a lot more than if we were doing it on our own in different places. We could go to the canyon all together and put in a solid effort, try to beat each other out every time. even though every time it was usually the same thing with Jim first, and then Tim, and then me.
But you always had those two carrots in front, so that definitely helps.
Yeah. Oh, I was only 2 minutes behind him this time. That's going good.
All right, so I got to ask you, man, because the Coconino Cowboys in American trail running, it's grabbed the imagination of a lot of American trail runners. As far as what it is, what it meant, what was that group of these five. But I'm going to go ahead and say I mean it in the nicest way. 5 cocky guys out on the trails, the young guys, trying to beat each other, trying to beat everyone else. But they obviously have this strong friendship. I think for everyone who knows about the Cowboys, it means something else. It grabbed a part of the individual's imagination. I want to hear what is your interpretation? What are the Cowboys?
Like you said, just a bunch of cocky guys with some fitness to back up our claims. Like, we wanted to go out and win races and make a name for ourselves, and that's what we did. And that's how it started, really. And then after a while of that, goals change, and people move away. People want different things, and so it was good while it lasted. There was a couple of years there when we were all together and had the same vision, or relatively same vision, and similar goals, and
in a conversation we had before, you had mentioned one time, it's just I don't know if you count it as a regret, but it's at the time when all this was happening, and I think this is really common when things are happening, you don't really see the full potential of something. You're living in the moment. You're trying to figure out what's going to happen next week, what's going to happen the next race, and you don't see this is something that we have here. And you had mentioned to me, it's just you had said just you and Tim kind of were the only ones who kind of had a bigger vision with the Cowboys. What did you mean by that, and what do you think it could have been had you guys if you feel that all 5 of you had a bigger vision of what this meant?
Yeah, like you said, looking into the future a week, a month, a year ahead of time, I think if we had all done that together, then we could have put our minds to something. I mean, we sort of did that. I mean, we really did that in 2018 when we all qualified for Western States and ran that together. Injury aside, I think Jared didn't make it that year because he got hurt. But anyway, he was still qualified and he was still present. But we did that once, and that kind of felt like it. After that, I don't think anybody really wanted to do anything together like that anymore, whether it was for reasons of just feeling it wasn't worth it, or maybe they felt like they didn't get anything out of it. I don't know, but yeah, there could have been a lot more, and I think there could have been a lot more if we had continued working together with a similar vision or goal long term. There could have been a lot more financial incentives for us that we could have gone after, but it just kind of fell apart. People were getting real jobs, and they just were focusing on that mostly.
I mean, so do you see a place for more teams coming up in trail running in the U.S. scene? It's just right now we talk about Team Solomon, we talk about Team Hoka, but they're not really teams. I mean, something very different.
Corporate teams, they're totally different, and they're just a bunch of random people thrown together, and they all have the same sponsor, and that's the only thing that connects them. And if you if what I find funny is like all the dancing that especially the Tarek's team does. Seems like all of their social media is just like dancing. But yeah, like that's a very different thing. Like I enjoyed the fact that we had, for the most part, for a while, all different sponsors. And then I was with Under Armour, obviously, and then everyone else was like with Hoka, with the Cowboys. But yeah, I mean, I think there is room for teams. Like you're going to get so much benefit out of just training together and pushing each other, and like systematically attacking races, and having that, I don't know, cohesion within the trail world.
So,
yeah.
But I mean, if it's not going to be a corporate sponsor, which is, it seems like that's in the system we have right now, the most obvious thing would be like, you have these 5 guys already together. Hoka comes in, says, okay, do what you need to do. We're going to fund you, or something along those lines.
Yeah, that's another way to go as well. Like if you wanted to, like if these companies want a group package like that, that could be really big. Right now, they're just taking the people that they have and putting them on these teams, and it's just different. But if you have a group of friends already, or a group of people already that train together, live around each other, and then a sponsor wants to come in and sponsor the whole group, like that would be the team. That's like totally different. And I think I don't know what value these companies see really in sponsoring runners. Like, what is their return on investment? But I could see a value in that.
Do you see any other? Because
there's a story. There's more of a story to tell as well with that. That's where that return comes from, because that's what people like. They like the story.
The story is enormous.
I mean, Cowboys, and we haven't been together for how long?
Exactly. And I mean, one of the big things I want to talk about with the Cowboys is part of this cockiness was, calling the home run, calling like, hey, we're gonna fucking do this. We're gonna do this race, and we're gonna get first, second, third here. But individually too, like you all kind of famously have had your famous failures. If you want to call them failures, I mean, if we can get philosophical about it, but where it's like where you call your shot and it didn't go out as you planned, which, let's be honest, that makes an awesome story. And I mean, we can look at like Sensman, who was, I mean, Tim, who had the video that he had for the race was at the 250 kilometer race he did, or 250 mile race.
Oh, Eric Sensman.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, for Coconino.
For Coconino. I mean, it's probably gotten more people to do the Coconino race ever, just because of it. I mean, I don't even know if you can call it a failure, but it definitely didn't go as he planned. And then, no. I mean, you've had your own things where it's like, hey, you set out, you wanted to kick ass at Leadville. It didn't go as you planned. But I mean, those stories are incredible for the sport. They're motivating to a lot of people. Like, how have you felt about, like, for your own or for your friends around with in the Flagstaff community, whether it's the Cowboys or not, of this kind of this cockiness to call your shot before the race? Do you feel that's still a part of you, or do you feel like you got burned by that?
No, I feel like it comes with being competitive, and I think that before trail running before the Cowboys was a lot of, oh yeah, we're going to go out there, we're going to have a lot of fun and try our best. And then we were like, no, we're going to come and fucking win this thing. And you can try to beat me or not, like, I don't care. I'm going to go for the win. Which a lot of people adopted, I think. And, I mean, that's what it's all about. Like, this is a race. It's not a fun run. We're competing. We're going to, I mean, and, all of us, Tim, Jim, me, Eric, Jared, like, we ran collegiately at different levels. It's no different than that. A race is a race. If you're not first, you're last. And that's what we were out there to do. And whether everyone agrees with that or not, like, doesn't matter. It's a race, like I said.
I mean, I got to say, I'm with you in the end, because why sign up for a race format? I mean, in my opinion,
exactly. If you want to just go run, you just go run. But we're here to compete. Yeah.
Because I'm all about creating as many different experiences on the mountain that you can, whether it's creating a festival, whether it's creating a fun run, whether it's creating a training together. But if you're going to call it a race and there's going to be first, second, and third, like, why do we need to pretend that there's no competition happening?
Exactly.
I have to say, like, calling shots is not my personality, but I love watching other people do it. I think it's fantastic. So with that story, another part with the community, Tommy Reeves was a part of the Flagstaff. He was not a cowboy, but he was around you guys. Like,
he was a cowboy. Absolutely. And once a cowboy, always a cowboy.
I mean, can you talk about did that experience was, according to what you're just talking about, like Tommy's, what happened with life-altering experience that he had when he ended up in the hospital in 2020. The Cowboys were descending as far as their being so together. Did that bring you guys a little bit together? Did you have a rally moment there?
I don't know. That was tough that year. With all the races being canceled, with Tommy having his problems. I mean, he started off deteriorating pretty quickly when he started getting sick, and because it was cancer of the lungs. I don't remember what the specific name is, but there was something wrong with his lungs, and he originally thought that he had COVID because he thought that those were the symptoms. He was having trouble breathing and coughing and just feeling sick. And so he isolated himself for a couple of weeks before he seeked out medical attention. All the while during that time, like, deteriorating more and more when he could have been getting help. But that's really just bad timing. Like, maybe if COVID wasn't happening during that time, he would have gone to the hospital sooner, because that wouldn't have been so front and center in his mind that it makes him think that that's what the problem was. He was in really bad shape and in the hospital down in Phoenix because his body couldn't handle the altitude in Flagstaff at the time. And even down there, like, he was on multiple ventilators and respirators, and I think it's called an ECMO machine, where it literally takes your blood out of you, oxygenates it itself, and puts it back in you. And like, he was unconscious for weeks. I don't remember how long it was, but it was a long time. And in complete isolation. Like, we couldn't see him. Nobody could see him. I don't think even his wife could see him or be in the same room with him at that time as much as we wanted to. It just couldn't happen. And it was a long process for him.
What was it like as far as like coming together to figure out ways? Because I mean, let's be honest, I think anybody listening, they've had a friend of a friend or a direct friend of someone in their family, and you have this feeling of helplessness. It's like you want to do whatever you can, but you can't do anything. What was the talk in the community? What actions were being taken in the Flagstaff community there?
Yeah, there was definitely that feeling of helplessness. There was a GoFundMe that was started by somebody in Flagstaff. I'm not 100% sure who, so I don't want to like throw any names out, but that was extremely successful. And, you know, unfortunately, at the state of American healthcare, that probably saved his life. Just having the money available to survive that through donations from other people. But yeah, there was, for me at least, a big feeling of helplessness. All I wanted to do was see him and couldn't do that. And, you know, all you could do is like reach out to his family and hope that they saw your notes of encouragement. Yeah.
You mentioned being abroad, and so it was soon after this you decided to hit the road. You spent the last year outside of the U.S. Talk about what was that decision like? Was it a decision you made before leaving, or did you leave the U.S. to do a race and just decided to stay? What was your decision to move out of the Flagstaff community after being there for 5 years, 6 years, immersed
10 years,
10 years in the Flagstaff community? Yeah. You took a jump. Can you talk about the decision of doing that?
Yeah, so in the summer of 2020, I wanted to see where else there was. You know, I was in Flagstaff for 10 years. I wanted to see basically like maybe there's someplace better. In the back of my head, I was like, there's probably not. Like, I really love Flagstaff. It's got a lot going for it. But like I want to give somewhere else a try. And so over the summer, like I've spent quite a bit of time in like Southwest Colorado, like in the San Juan Mountains, in the summer, and I love it there. Like Silverton, Durango, Ouray, Ridgeway area, you know, just the whole Hard Rock area. I really like, and the altitude. Obviously, it's incredibly high up. You know, like Silverton's at 9,000 feet. Like where I would camp with my friends, it would be at 10,000 feet. And I also wanted to get into skiing a little bit. I had snowboarded a couple times in high school, and I tried skiing one time in Flagstaff. And what really got me interested in that was seeing Francois Dehaen's Strava activities of ski touring through the Alps just for miles over entire days. I was like, wow, that looks spectacular. Like the mountains are covered in snow in the winter. You're not running in them, but this is a way to get out on them. And I wanted to do that. And so nowhere in Colorado really worked out. And then I remember in high school, we would go on a cross-country camp to Mammoth Lakes in California, which is near Yosemite in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And I was like, what about Mammoth? Like, I haven't been there, you know, since the summer before I came to college. Like, that place has a lot of really good running, has a huge running history or pedigree. Like, you know, when I was in high school, that's where people like Ryan Hall and Meb would train, who I got to meet there when I would go have running camp in high school there. And yeah, so I was like, what about Mammoth? And, they have got the most spectacular mountains there, the Sierra, and ended up driving out there and finding a place. And like instantly it was like, oh yeah, this is the right decision. um, all I wanted to do there was get out in the mountains and train, whether that was running in the summer or skiing, touring in the winter, which worked out great because, with the COVID and it being California, it was a little more strict than other states. Like getting out and meeting people at bars or wherever was difficult when you like couldn't see their faces. Um, so, and it's also like a really small town. I think the population is like 8,000 people. Obviously, there's like tons of people that come on the weekends from LA or for holidays. But yeah, really small town, really, really cool though, and really special, and like way out there on its own. It's very isolated. You want to get if you want to get anywhere, you have to drive over these mountain passes, which like they're all closed in the winter. You can't go through Yosemite to the west side. Sometimes, even if there's like a ton of snow, like there's no way to get around, or you have to like go way down south, just around the whole mountain range to get to the west side, which I thought was pretty cool. That isolated feeling.
And so on the timeline here, you tried out Colorado a little bit, then went on to Mammoth. How much time were you in Mammoth for?
I was in Mammoth for 2 years, so from like the middle or end of 2020 to I guess March. Yeah, I left the U.S. in March of 22, and the reason why I wanted to leave was because the cost of living was. I realized like I could travel to all these places, set up my race schedule so that I could fly to one race, spend some time there, have another race set up, who would be able to cover for travel to go there, and just basically rent places in between, either through Airbnb or whatever I could find, and it would be the same or cheaper than what I was paying to live in the U.S. I mean, it was definitely cheaper. Especially the food. Price of food here is quite expensive.
In Mammoth, I mean, it's kind of unfair to judge based on the time that the world was going through when you were there. But what was the community like? I mean, obviously we can't compare it directly to Flagstaff because that just wouldn't be fair. But were you able to find like a group there? What was the vibe like as for beyond just the incredible nature, the altitude? What was the trail running scene like?
There was a couple trail runners. There would be like one or two, maybe group runs per week that I did a couple of those. But 99.9% of the time I was just on my own, and I was totally okay with that. It's a very expensive place to live, and being a professional trail runner there is not, there's not many trail runners that could live there if they weren't working some other full-time job.
So leaving Mammoth, did you go directly to Europe after that, or was it to South Africa?
The first place I went to was Italy. I ran the Shaka Trail race, which was like at the end of March, I think, or beginning of April. That ended up getting canceled because it snowed on the course the day of the race, and like that was totally unexpected and random, and it snowed a lot. Like so much that they couldn't drive the cars and to the aid stations and have medical aid where it needed to be. So they just canceled the race after it had started. Like we were a few miles in, but I ended up doing the course like 2 days later. It was a beautiful day. Everything had melted, and I just ran the course myself while getting like focaccia and cappuccinos on the way.
This already sounds better.
Much
This
better
sounds better than doing
experience
a
than
race, man. This
racing.
is
Yeah, so I'd say it worked out pretty well.
in
Yeah,
in
but
Italy. This
after
go ahead.
anyway, after that is when I headed to South Africa for a few months and ran the Ultra Trail Drakensberg 100K.
Where you had a great race, like what I mean, that was you won that race. Like, what was the lead up for that? Like, what went right in that race for you? Beyond just winning, but like what came together in that lead up?
Yeah, just being fit and recovered basically. Yeah, that was it basically. All of the training that I did in the lead up in Mammoth, and I think the main thing was being fully recovered for that. In the lead up, like immediately before the race, was not ideal. Or I guess one could argue that it was, but I got pretty sick and wasn't able to run very much like the week of the race. And like there was no way I was going to be able to race unless I started feeling better, and that only happened like the day of the race. I was starting the race thinking I was going to drop at like the first aid station, and walked for like maybe the first 10K of the race. I mean, it was up like a big mountain pass that we would just like go up and then straight back down. And I told my friend before the race, I'm like, hey, I'm just going to walk this whole freaking thing, and see how it goes. And I did. And when I started coming down, I was like, that's like literally when I started feeling better. And then I was able to pick up the pace. I fell really hard. And then I was back in like a bad mental space. So I'm like, okay, now I just banged my hip on this rock that I just fell on. Like I'm done. I'm dropping at the next aid station. And then that went away. I'm like, okay. Actually, there was this song that came on, so I was listening to music, and then I was like, stop being. Basically, I was telling myself like, okay, stop being a pussy. Let's freaking do this thing. Yeah. And then I took off, and I think I caught everyone in like the next couple miles, and I was in the lead at like mile 20 when I and dropped everyone when I didn't want that. You don't want to run 100K by yourself for that long. Ideally, it's nice to have other people like to run with, in long races.
So was kind of a start for your? I mean, from talking to you after this, you have a great place in your heart for Cape Town, and this part of the world. Can you talk about your connection with the country, with Cape Town, and what is the community like there?
Yeah, ever since I went there for the first time in 2019, I had totally fallen in love with Cape Town and just had like the best experience. Forget about the race that I won. It was a great time, great experience in the country and in Cape Town. But it was hard telling people that. They think that I'm super biased because I had like a really good race. And I think I did get through to some people because Jim ended up going in 2021. And like he had a great time, and he understood like how great it was, or it is there. Yeah, and like not only is Cape Town such a great place, but that race, Ultra Trail Cape Town, has really, really not stepped up their game, but it's a high profile event, and with the coverage that they have of the race and just the course and the people that they get to go there, it's a high quality event. On the same level as a UTMB, even though, maybe people don't think that, just because maybe the timing or where it's at, trail running in general, it's so much bigger in Europe, and having UTMB in a place like Chamonix, like that definitely helps. But yeah, I mean, Ultra Trail Cape Town is a very high quality event on the same level.
Yeah, people who weren't paying attention last year to the race, I mean, it was absolutely amazing to see when we have the tendency right now is the attention's going to series, the attention's going to whatever has UTMB connected to it, the attention's or Golden Series or these. I think we're all aware of these bigger series, but to watch one standalone race just captured the attention of everyone on the day. It was amazing to watch, and I think it's Stanley, right? The organizer, Stu. Sorry.
Yeah, Stuart McConaughey.
And just I remember watching some interviews with him and the investment that he was putting into this financially, but more energy. It was incredible to see. And you actually you returned. You were doing media on the course. What was the vibe like on the course? And how did that feel? Like you're not officially an expat, but you're an American. You're there, and now you're receiving all the people from around the world. You're almost like you're kind of like a deemed local at that point, and you got to share the trails with people from outside, and you were an insider for that. What was that experience like for the week leading up, and then for the actual event?
No, it was great. It was super exciting. Like trying something new that I had never done. I would have raced again if it weren't for running a 100-miler, 4 to 6 weeks before that. Everyone was wondering why I wasn't racing. It's like, well, I just raced 100 miles. Like, I want to take some time off. And so I thought I wanted to be a part of the race, obviously, because I did the 100K in 2019. I did the 60 or 65K in 2021. And I wanted to do something, be a part of the race. And so I think Stu reached out to me. I was already thinking like, oh, maybe I could do like some sort of media thing and like race commentary. And then Stu reached out to me, like even before I had said anything. He's like, hey, you want to be in front of the camera, like doing race commentary? And I'm like, hell yeah, buddy, I'm there. And so I had already even become pretty good friends with the media guys, like Frank and Corey. And one of them, Corey, he's even from the U.S. who married a South African. And so like those guys and we get along really well. And so filming stuff with them, just like whatever they think of, it could be just, off the cuff, like, hey, let's go like ride along the prom and film this thing, random, whatever. Let's go do this and interview this person, and like, but not like a pre-race interview. It's just like a casual hangout, you get to know you kind of interview, which I think a lot of that is, I mean, I don't know any of the races that do that, but that like sets apart Ultra Trail Cape Town so much, is just the fun stuff that they do and put out for the race,
Beyond this race, I mean, it seems like it's not a very old, there's not a long history of trail running that I know of. There's in South Africa. I mean, there's obviously there's an ultra scene. Everybody, Comrades is a very famous race, the ultra scene, but the trail running scene, what is it like there? I'm very ignorant on that. Like, is there a community around trails? And it seems like just suddenly, like within 3 years, they have a lot of big names. Just, it seems like they're coming out of nowhere. But I haven't been watching the scene there for a long time. What is the community like there?
Yeah, so the trail running, or just the running history in South Africa goes back decades. You mentioned comrades. Like, I don't think people understand how big comrades is unless they've been there and have run comrades. Like, obviously Camille understands, but I mean, she's a massive celebrity there because she won that. Like, that is a huge thing. Like, just running comrades, you'll say you're a runner in South Africa and they're like, oh yeah, well, have you done comrades? No, I guess you're not a runner. It's like that kind of thing. So the running culture there is very big. Trail running has definitely had a huge explosion in the last maybe decade, less than. And I've talked to some people about this, and I think that like Ultra Trail Cape Town did have a huge part to play in that popularity of trail running in Cape Town and South Africa. Like, it's brought the world's eyes onto that part of the world. It's very out of the way. It's not easy to get to. It's a long flight, especially from America. It's 2 long flights. And like it's an amazing place. Great trail running. And the trails are hard, like very rocky and technical, and you don't get very long climbs. Like, you go up Table Mountain and that's like 1,000 meters at the most, maybe less. I forget what it is now, but like it's very different than American style running, very different than European style running. It's its own style, and it is tough and rugged, and it's great.
I mean, and so beyond just the technicality of the trails, the community around the trails, did you feel a vibe of that? Were there weekly meetups? You spent a significant amount of time there. Did you have a time? Did you have your own little team that formed there?
So I was mainly running on my own there. When I was there, I would meet up with a couple people sometimes, but there's group runs like probably every freaking day of the week there. The main one is Tuesday trails, and so on Tuesday nights oh no, I gotta plug my phone in. Tuesday trails is the main one, and you meet up around Table Mountain in like 3 or 4 different spots, and they'll announce like on Instagram that Tuesday morning where they're meeting. And there's like 4 or 5 different groups, all different paces. It's very beginner friendly, and it's very experience friendly as well. Like, you'll definitely find a group to run your own pace with, and then afterwards there's beer provided by a local brewery, Jack Black's. And on any random Tuesday, like in the middle of winter, it doesn't matter. There's like dozens of people there. And then it gets really big the week of Ultra Trail Cape Town, because the Stu puts on Tuesday trails and Stu puts on Ultra Trail Cape Town. And so Stu brings the athletes that are there or that have been invited, bring them to Tuesday trails, and it's a big media event, and there's hundreds of runners, and it gets very big and very busy, and you just run around for an hour, come back, and you grab a beer.
I want to jump back to Italy. One thing I saw there, you're spending a lot of time with Michele Graglia, or Mickey.
Mickey Graglia.
Mickey Graglia. I have a good friend of mine is from Italy, and every time I say his name, he's like, Roger.
Does he laugh at you?
No,
yeah,
Roger.
I know, me too. The same thing. When I first saw it, he's like, no G, just Graglia.
All right, so Mickey, I love Mickey because it feels like I'm like 1950s, like I'm watching an episode of Happy Days or something. Mickey, so Mickey, is it Dino? I mean, watching you guys through Instagram, and then actually I met up with you guys in Italy there. it seemed like you had a little group there for a couple months, just kind of doing almost Jack Kerouac through Italy there. Like, can you talk about that time? How were those couple of months of running around with those guys?
It was fun, and it was also tiring and exhausting. Like we we met up to do Lavaredo, something that a race that is very unfamiliar for Mickey because like he's the 200 plus mile kind of runner guy. He's done very well at a couple of those. Like won the Moab 240, and I think that was like the first big race that he won. That was quite a while ago now, but yeah, like me and Mickey, we were going to be in Italy for Lavaredo, and he got this camper van, and then he told me that his photographer friend Dino was coming along, and we were going to do photos in like 5 different countries, like Hungary, Croatia, like I don't even know where we went. It was like a different country every day. It was mentally exhausting, like looking out the window at all these places and seeing all of the history and the culture, like different place every day. It was way too much, way too fast. Like you could spend weeks in all of these places and just barely scratch the surface, and we were just there for a day. Not even like it was also
I gotta call you out, man. For like
me,
any trail runner, you just sounded like a spoiled bitch right now, just saying that was way too much and complaining about being in a different country every day running on amazing trails. But like,
totally. I mean, and running through the cities as well. Like, I unfortunately got sick when we were in Budapest, but like, me and Mickey and Dino, we would like run around these cities. Like the names of them, I can't think of them, but we would get to these cities, and we'd go for a run. Dino would have his little like point and shoot camera and take these amazing photos of us, like just running through the cities. And it was such an amazing way to see these places. I mean, like maybe I described it poorly before, but it was just so mental overstimulation is the best way to describe it. Yeah.
But was there a plan behind all this? Like, was it? I mean, Mickey's sponsored by Las Chiva. Like, was there something behind this, or like, was it just, hey, let's just hit the road?
The plan was that Dino does photography and writes articles for a couple Italian magazines, and so I think the last one just finally came out maybe 2 months ago. But he captured the footage for this trip, and all of the information, and he wrote these amazing articles for these Italian magazines and put these stunning pictures to go along with it of our Eastern European little tour.
That sounds absolutely amazing, man. Like, what has been the feedback that you've gotten from that? I mean, like, have you felt like your European audience has grown, or like, what have you heard back from people on that?
I haven't heard anything. Yeah.
You got to brush up on your Italian.
Great. The articles are great. Yeah, I got to brush up on my Italian. But yeah, it was this stunning experience, and not the best thing to do like the week before a big race that you want to do well at, but like what are you going to do? You don't get to do that all the time. Me, Mickey, and Dino, just 3 of us in the camper van. Like me and Mickey were on the bed in the van, which was like you could raise and lower it. It was like a really nice camper van, like not a Sprinter, but similar thing to that. And then Dino, we've had him in the garage. We called it, like under the bed in like the storage area with the bikes and stuff.
That sounds absolutely amazing, man. So coming almost, I don't know if you want to call it full circle, but you end up back in Flagstaff at the beginning of this year. It was after all this. I mean, you can. I don't know how you look at it. Like, were you coming back to the Shire? There's a T.S. Eliot poem where he talks about, we go until we come to where we started, and we know it as if it were for the first time. Like, what was that like coming back to Flagstaff after this, after your experiences in Colorado, your experiences in Mammoth, of this almost overstimulation of what you love to do in Europe, and now you're coming back to this place that you knew so well before. What was that process like? And do you feel like, are you still processing everything that happened over the last year, 2 years?
Yeah, like coming back to Flagstaff, first it feels like that time in Mammoth, like almost is like a dream. The time in Mammoth was like a dream. The time traveling, it's like a dream. Like I was gone for a year, or I was gone from Flagstaff for 3 years. But it feels like, I left Flagstaff, I traveled the world, and then I came back, and that was like a 1 year thing. But I've been gone for a while. It's great to be back. It's the same, but also very different. I'm glad that I still have like so many friends here. Not many people have moved away. But yeah, I am glad to be back ultimately. Yeah, and looking back, I noticed this when I went to Cape Town for the first time last year after Italy, and I was looking through pictures of the Cinque Terre and the videos that I got, and I just remember thinking, like, looking at these pictures, and like, wow, like this is so much more. It's hard to take it in person, really. Like there was so much more vibrance in these pictures than I could even remember when I was there. Like, because there's just so much, and it's so mind blowing, really. And it's like, wow, I was just there. Like, looking at the pictures and the videos, it's like, I felt like I wasn't even there, a week ago. It was a very strange sensation, really, and a lot of that is, goes back to Mammoth as well.
So I gotta ask, you left a really interesting post on your Instagram the other day. Just over like these last few months, it's been ups and downs. I mean, coming back to Flagstaff, it was probably very emotional for you, seeing people you hadn't seen in so long, seeing things with different eyes now. But as far as contracts, readjusting to being back in the States, it's had its lumps. Is that something could you share a little bit about that, and like, and why did you choose to open up about that on Instagram? I know for myself, like being that vulnerable on Instagram I have difficulty with that. I always want to be like the guy, I got it together, I'm doing this shit, I'm going to do this right. And when I see people I know and people that I care about open up about that, man, I'm wondering where are they at? Obviously I want to reach out to them. I want to offer whatever help I can. But like, what led to you talking about that, and where are you at right now?
So, the main thing that I wanted to post to communicate in that post is to just bring up again the problems that I had with that race that I ran in Italy with OneHundred and Gran Sasso, and how difficult it has been to get the prize money from them. It's now the end of May, and I still haven't received all of my money. They have paid me a few €1,000 so far, and they still owe me a few €1,000. They've dropped all communication with me. They've not gotten any replies to emails for months, and it's frustrating. And I wanted to make sure that people knew that this is happening, because they're still advertising races and taking people's money to sign up for these races, which they're having, in Brazil and in Italy and, a couple other countries. Like, I won that race, and you were right behind me. You got second place. What did it take for you to get paid by them?
Well, so actually, it took for people complaining online. That was an action that I tried. I was trying to work behind the scenes on this. It's a long story with 100. I have a little bit of a longer history with that race. For people who aren't aware, 100 came in a couple years ago, and they made big promises. A lot of big promises about big prize money. They're gonna make it more feasible for professional athletes to win money in races. A lot of big promises with live streaming, a lot of excitement. And they offered what they ended up offering in the time they've been around. They've offered something that's okay, but it's very far from what they promised. And I will say, from the race in Gran Sasso in Italy that we participated in, I ended up getting the prize money because someone else in Brazil, from the race in Brazil, they ended up complaining publicly online. It looked bad for the organization, and I'll go ahead and say my opinion and where the money came from was from an investor in the organization who wanted to stop the bleeding of people complaining publicly. And so, as far as I know, everybody who participated in 100 races in Brazil they were paid. I don't know if every organization who helped in the races in Paraty, which is a race that they did in the state of Rio de Janeiro. I don't know if all the organizations that worked with that race were paid, but I know almost all of the athletes. I think all of the athletes in Brazil were paid. Outside of Brazil, it's a very different story. I know from Gran Sasso, I think you're actually one of the only athletes who received the money. And it's something where, I'll be honest, is the first time I'm kind of talking publicly about this. I was hoping that we could solve this behind the scenes. I was hoping that it would be something that we could take care of and move forward. But unfortunately, people are not calling them out outside of Brazil. And unfortunately, I think you're the only athlete I know of outside of Brazil who has received any money at all, which is very unfortunate as far as what they promised. I know I had expectations, obviously. I thought that what they were promising looked great. And I saw some asterisks. I saw some warning signs pretty early on. But I thought that maybe I could help them with that. And I was actually involved in the planning in Brazil for the race here. I thought maybe some of the problems that happened in their first race in Brazil could be fixed if they had somebody who knew a little bit more about, the trail running culture in Brazil and organizing trail races in general, which seemed to be something that they were lacking in. Lacking knowledge in, and trying to work with them from different aspects. It was not a very good experience, I can say. But my hope is we can still work with the organization to get the athletes what they promised them. I know there's athletes in Poland and in Italy and in your situation in the US that are still waiting for prize money. And it's an unfortunate situation.
Yeah. And what is an athlete supposed to do in this situation? You could go the American way and sue them if that's even an option. sponsors, are they supposed to help you out, getting your money from these races? I've never heard of that happening. The only thing that you can do is try and communicate with them directly, try to understand what's happening, like why you haven't been paid. And, from the start with them, it was questionable. Like right after the race, I sent them an email maybe like a week later, like, hey guys, how's it going? Thank you so much. That was awesome. When can you pay me? And the response was, oh, well, on our website, it says 90 to 120 days after the event, you will get your money. And I was like, okay. So I went and looked on the website, and no mention of that anywhere. And I looked like everywhere where on the website, it didn't say that anywhere. And then 90 days comes and 120 days goes, and I still hadn't been paid. And I continue emailing them like, hey, where's the prize money? It's been, over 5 months, however long it was. And that happened a couple times, and then a couple responses of, oh, it's coming soon, next week, lots of those, and still nothing. And then that is when I made the post the first time I called them out on Instagram. And then I think it was the next week when I got like the first €2,000 payment. And then there was another one that came maybe a week or two later, and nothing since then. And they still owe me €2,350. So I reminded them of that in another email, which did not get any reply. The last few emails for the last, couple months now haven't had any reply. And so, that's why I've just been vocal on social media. I feel like that's the only thing I can do. If I don't get the money, whatever, like for me, that's a lot of money. And especially right now with trying to move and work in 2 jobs, and just trying to maintain any kind of running fitness that I have, that right now that would go a long way, and they're keeping that from me. Running 100 miles was not the hard part in this story. That was the easy thing. Trying to get what they promised, that prize money, has been a real big pain in the ass, and it's not good for them. Obviously, it's not good for trail running. Not that many races offer prize money for whatever reason. A lot of these races charge a lot of money to race them. That money's going somewhere, but it's not going to the top performers, who are the ones really at the end of the day that do the majority of race promotion. And I told them the same thing. What's really unfortunate is if they had just paid us in a timely fashion, maybe at 90 to 120 days, maybe it did say something about that on the website. Maybe it didn't matter. If they had paid us in that time, then great, in full, then that would have been great. And I would have loved to continue to promote this race and race it in the future around the world, whenever or wherever they had their events. But that's a long gone thing now.
Yeah, I'll have to say personally, for me, it was. I'm not 100% financially dependent on running. I mean, I do have my day job. Obviously the money it's nice. It helps. I invest it in projects I have around trail running. But for me, the thing that really I took personal with 100 was, okay, they had problems. People have problems. Organizations have problems. That's something we can expect. That we can almost plan for that in life. That shit's gonna hit the fan eventually. But it's the way you deal with it when shit hits the fan that defines you as a person, and it defines you as an organization. And to watch, okay, I don't know everything that happened behind the scenes with 100. I feel like I know a lot more than what other people know because I was working in various aspects with 100 at the time. And the way I saw them dealing with the athletes, talking about the athletes behind their backs, and things that, well, I hate to call people liars, but the things that they were saying that just weren't true. That was the thing that killed it for me. And then to watch athletes reaching out to other athletes in Italy, who, okay, maybe it's not a huge sum of money that they won, but it was a sum of money that was promised to them, and they were looking forward to having that money in their account, and just kind of feeling deceived by the whole situation. And then talking to people who were from that region of Italy, being like, wow, we were really excited to have a trail event that would feature our region, our part of the world, and at an international level, and then to have it completely turn a 180 and just turn into a horror show for them. You nailed it.
It's bad for everyone involved. It's bad for everyone involved. You know, runners want this, communities want this, and you know, whatever you want to call this company, you know, whatever, 100, they just they prey on that want. They're like, oh yeah, we'll come in, do this race, do all this prize money, it's going to be great. We want to, you know, a few years down the line, compete with the big races around the world, you know, UTMB company. Yeah, and whether, you know, that's the story that they told. Whether they believe that or not doesn't matter. Like, personally, I don't believe that they ever believe that, at least the ones in charge, because how could they? You know, say one thing, do another. Talk is cheap. Just be judged by your actions. And their actions have been shitty, like, every step of the way. Except for, like, I'll give them credit. You know, they bought my ticket out there and they put me in a hotel. But for, like, bringing athletes to your race, like, that's a bare minimum.
I mean, and as I said earlier, they did deliver for, like, their first year. They delivered a fair amount, but in comparison to what they promised, it wasn't even close. So it's just like, if they just made their promises more reasonable from the get-go, I think it would have been a successful first year for them as far as doing international races. But the problem was the talk was way too big.
Could have totally been a really great success story with, you know, there was not that many people racing the 100-miler that we ran, but, you know, if it was handled properly, if it was handled the way that they had advertised, you know, I mean, how quickly and how large do you see that race growing? Like, a lot, I see. Not anymore, though.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is like we're seeing a lot of races that came out post pandemic, and a lot of changes in the running scene. Can I ask you, like, as a pro athlete, like, where do you, for yourself and for obviously you look to 100 to make money from this, but, like, for pro athletes, what usually guides the calendar? Is it usually based on, like, what your sponsors, what direction they point you in? Like, what guides your decisions as far as, like, racing and just making sure that you have enough income coming in?
So For me personally, the sponsors haven't ever really had much say in races that I do. Like, unless the sponsor puts on that race, like Under Armour put on Under Armour put on Trans Rockies, a stage race in Colorado, and so they wanted their athletes to run that, and that was really the only input that they would have. You know, like, there was conflict if there was other races around that, and they could be flexible about that. But the reason why I went to the Gran Sasso race was because they were offering prize money, and I wanted to win some money. Like, I wanted some extra cash. I needed some. And then to not, athletes, they invest all the time in training, and if you have a bad race, you feel like you've wasted all that time, and it's really tough. And especially for the long races, like 100K to 100 miler, like, it's not like you can just go out the next week and try another one. You have to recover, train again. That's a whole process. And it takes a lot of time. And so you invest that time in that. And then when things go well, like, that is a huge payoff in that time that you invested. And then if there's prize money offered at a race, that is a big payout. And so races offering prize money is a huge, for me at least, it's a big driver for me for what races that I pick. Other things are like races that I'm personally interested in, like Lavaredo was one. It's a hugely popular race in a stunning area that I wanted to spend time in and, compete at. It's very competitive, and I still like competing. Another factor is, just based on whenever you're fit, in your training cycle, whenever you feel ready to race, there's probably going to be a race happening, like a major race somewhere in the world happening that you can sign up for and get to when you're feeling ready for it. For me at least, I have problems looking into the future too far and signing up for races and then trying to build training around that, because lots of things can happen in the meantime: injury, sickness, life, whatever. And then being ready on a specific day, like a year in the future, it's very difficult for me at least.
So outside of races, I mean, the other obvious way is through contracts that you're making money. One time we were talking about the pros and cons of signing long-term contracts, signing a 1-year contract versus a 3-year contract. Like, where are you at with that now? Because I can imagine, like, a up and coming runner, you have a couple good races, a company shows up and says, "Hey, sign a 3-year contract." That sounds amazing. That sounds like, wow, if that's your first contract and it's 3 years, like, where do I sign? That's it. But maybe someone who's been in the game for a little bit might say, nah, be careful with that, because you know what's going to happen. You could get something better a year from now. Like, where are you at with that? Is that something that you've been thinking about, and as you're looking for more contracts right now?
That totally depends. Like, the length of a contract being a good or bad thing for you, it totally depends on, like, where you are as an athlete, and what you're looking for. Like, maybe you're going to know something that they don't. So if you see yourself not improving over a long period of time, maybe you sign that longer contract. If you see yourself improving very quickly, like maybe you're at the beginning of your career, or you're, you know, if you have bigger goals than what a contract offer to you is providing, then yeah, maybe you want a shorter contract. Also, longer contracts, they kind of take the stress off a little bit, because you don't have to, you're like a politician, you don't have to campaign every year and play the whole game and do the whole song and dance every year to try to get some contract from some company. And that is a stressful process, because like you've got that time counting down to usually sometime at the end of the year, when budgets are set and nobody's going to sign you.
Can I ask you, like, what?
But for me personally, ask that part again.
For you personally, as far as like with the length of the contract, I mean, if you want to talk about like what you're looking for right now, but with this in mind, I want to ask you, like, in your perspective, like what beyond just being Cody Reed and people showing up and giving you money, which would be a great situation, but what kind of situation do you look for when you're looking at a company? Are you more interested in, hey, are they going to help me boost my image, create more content around me? Are you looking more for money straight up? Like, are you looking more like what kind of working relationship do you look for when you're looking at contracts?
Yeah, like money first and foremost, because a lot of people do the professional route very differently, and there's like the more influencer side of running, and then there's the competitor side of running, and I've always wanted to be the competitor side, and have my performance dictate my value, in a way. Like, I don't, that's like the best way I can describe it. Having the ability to work with a company and have them support you, and obviously, like, it's obviously having products that you can use. It's also just as important as the money. But having that company supporting you and helping promote you, and not just giving you a paycheck and bonuses for racing, is important, I think. And that's what I'm looking for, at least.
Is this something that's evolving? Because let's be honest, like winning races for any athlete, any sport, or winning at a top level, there's a timestamp on that. Is your vision of that evolving with time? Because injuries happen, we get older, and contracts and negotiating solely based on winning races, it can come to an end. Are you thinking about that for, like, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, how you could evolve in the sport to maintain contracts, to me, like you had a chance to work with media in Cape Town. Like, are you looking at those options with more of an open mind now, or are you still solely focused on performance-based contracts?
Yeah, I was totally looking at every angle. I mean, if you want to be like a professional runner now, I feel like you have to do everything. You have to be that influencer, and you have to be performing, and you have to have all of the followers on social media. And when I was contacting companies at the end of 2022 and even into 2023, like, I was telling them all of my plans, all the things I wanted to do, basically how I could add value to their teams or companies or whatever you want to call them. And just nobody was was interested in anything really. There was this period of time where it was like, oh, it's too early to talk about this, and then the next day it was too late to talk about this, and everything was set for them and budgets were finished. And so lately I'm not focusing on any of that, and I'm just focusing on taking care of myself and running as much as I can. Like, you brought up that Instagram post that I made a week ago now, after this podcast was being recorded, about, and I mentioned about all of the rejection that I've been receiving, rejection from OneHundred, rejection from sponsors, rejection from jobs. I mean, like, it's not a very good feeling when you're applying for everything and anything that pays any money, like whatever Flagstaff's minimum wages, which is definitely not enough to survive in Flagstaff. And you keep getting rejected from these positions. Like, I start taking it personally and start wondering, if I can't get a job, if I can't get anyone to pay me for some work, like, what is the fucking point of all of this? And what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm not going to go back home. But yeah, it took a long time to finally get something going, and I luckily finally did. And yeah, and so that's all I've had time to focus on, and that is why running has been, put on the back burner. I haven't been able to get in many miles lately. Been incredibly busy working and finding work and trying to figure out what I'm going to do and trying to get into some sort of routine. And then when I came to Flagstaff in mid-March, I found this place, which was just a room for rent with a couple other people in the house. And it's been a bad situation. It's been a bad place for me, and like, just been focusing mainly on getting out of here. And I've finally been able to do that. Like, on Tuesday, I get the water and gas turned on because it's a freaking 3-day weekend, and I just closed it on Friday. But I found the cheapest studio I could get in town, and yeah, I'll be there on Tuesday.
So,
getting a little bit more settled.
So you've had a couple of things go your way very recently, like with a contract and a new place. But what is your outlook for the rest of the year? What are your plans for the rest of the year? Are you looking to stay in Flagstaff, and what do you have in mind as far as where is running in your mind right now? Like, what role is running play in your mind right now?
Not much, really, other than something that I need to do to stay mentally sane. And lately that's meant doing some pretty late runs, breaking out the headlamp, and just getting out for whatever I can do, 4 or 5 miles on the road. But other than that, I haven't really been focusing on it that much. I've had more urgent issues to deal with. Now that I have a place that I feel like I can relax in, then we'll that can give me some better opportunities, better place to think about things, and keep looking for races with prize money, because I still want to compete, and that's a good way, I think, to make some extra money if they ever pay.
In the post, you did mention, like, you still have the community with you. What has that meant for you, and to be back in Flagstaff, to have the people that you've known for so long? Have you had more people reaching out to you over the last month?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I've got some good friends here that go back to, a long time ago, like from the NAU days. And it's been great spending time with them, and, reminiscing about days of old, and just what's happening now, in life and the world, and, what is coming up, and just what you're supposed to do in situations like this. Yeah. But I feel like wherever I was in the world, like, I still had the ability to talk to these people, whether they were in Flagstaff or wherever I was, like in Italy, in France. I mean, I had tons of friends and people that I knew show up to Chamonix. Like, the whole trail running world is there during UTMB. And like, when I was there, it was great getting out for runs with Jared. Like, it had been a while since we got to hang out. And yeah, just, and like, the best runs or the best times with friends is just when you go back to normal. Like, it's not like, complaining about things or talking about how hard things are, or, what's happening in the moment. It's just normal conversations, that kind of thing. And, friends in Cape Town as well, that you could just be normal with for a little bit.
What? All right. So in 2016 or 2015, you went this route where you didn't really know what was going to be happening. And it's been an amazing ride until now, and it will continue to be an interesting ride, to say the least. What would you say to Cody Reed of 2016, 2015? And would there be any direction that you would give a little bit differently, or any skill set that would be a little bit differently that you would tell him to evolve?
Yeah, a few things, mostly personal things that I don't want to talk about here, but the main thing probably is just, like, keep like, as far as the running and the sponsors go, like, keep going, keep pushing, because they don't care about you, really. And I knew that, but you just have to remind yourself every once in a while, that they don't really care about you, and you were just pennies to them. Like, whatever they pay you, it's hardly anything, and they don't really care that much about you. And sometimes you have a tendency to forget that. And so I would just say, like, just keep pushing.
Man, it's been a really interesting talk, because I mean, having the podcast, I've talked to you a fair amount outside of this, but explore some issues or some things that I've never spoken to you about. It's been really interesting. Is there any message you want to leave for people listening? Ways that they can find you, follow you on Instagram? Any party messages you want to leave with people listening?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, Cody Reed with 4 E's. Not posting as much as I used to, just mostly like whatever is required by my sponsors. But yeah, hopefully that changes because I've just been busy and focused on other things lately. Want to get back to where I was really, and racing and competing and running big mileage and traveling everywhere that I can to do it.
Is Grumpy Cody Reed, is he posting much these days?
Yeah, the thing about Grumpy Cody Reed is it's really hard to justify posting that when I feel so shitty. Like when I'm actually grumpy, or grumpy's the bad word, but when I'm, not having such a good time, it's hard to post on that because it's a satire account, and it could, with the wrong mindset, it can get a little too serious, a little too quickly, and that's not what I want to do.
Cody, man, I've really enjoyed talking to you here. I know it's a tough time right now. I'm really pulling for you on, especially with this thing with 100, that things work out there, and with future stuff too. I know your passion is with running, and it's with different aspects. As I said at the beginning, one thing, it's like, I'll be perfectly honest. It's like you come off as a very independent person. You want to do things your way, but I find it amazing to watch, like the way wherever you've gone, you've tried to form community. You try to form connections. You're knocking on the doors of people saying, "Hey, let's hit some trails. Let's get out there," and you're bringing people together. And so, like, I definitely want to encourage you to keep that up, keep forming connections, and keep knocking on doors, man.
Thanks, man. That's the cool thing about trail running is the opportunity for that is there. It's not like I'm creating anything, just taking advantage of, in a way, the trail community. And, everyone just wants to get out on a run, hang out, We all have a shared interest in doing that. And it doesn't matter if you're in America or Europe or South Africa, like that's something that we all share.
Nice, man. Well, if you ever make it down to Brazil, you can come knock on my door. I'm going to hit some trails with you, man.
Yes, I have to get to South America, and I can't wait to visit you sometime in Brazil. Like, I got to spend some good time with Morgan during that race in Gran Sasso. We hung out. I think we talked the entire time of the 50K that we ran together, and I wish you were up there with us. But yeah, I'm excited to get out for a run with you. It'll happen sometime.
It will, man. Best of luck, and yeah, happy trails ahead, man. Things are gonna happen. Things are gonna come together, man.
Yeah, not unless I make them happen.